I swear, nothing prepares you for that kind of sting, not even the subtle red flags you brushed off for too long. We were sitting at this fancy little bistro downtown, the kind with low lighting and overpriced wine. I thought we were celebrating something, maybe our anniversary, or just being together for 2 years. But the air felt off. You know that weird electric tension? That's when it happened. Right in the middle of a dumb joke his friend told, he turned to me and laughed. She's cute, but not like hot. I mean, let's be real. She's kind of ugly, right? They laughed. I froze. I didn't know if I was supposed to laugh too, or disappear into the floor. My chest burned, but not from anger. At first it was shame. Deep, suffocating shame. I looked at him, trying to see if this was some awful joke. It wasn't. He wasn't even looking at me. He just kept chatting, sipping his drink, like nothing happened. That moment shattered something in me. I felt like I was watching myself from outside my body, and all I could think was I was nothing to him. I had no name, no worth, no voice, just a pretty accessory he was bored of. When the check came, $347,000 by the way, he slid it toward me and said, "I think it's time we stop pretending this is working." That's it. No explanation, no apology, just he thought I would stay long enough to be insulted, humiliated, and pay the damn bill. I didn't even cry. Not then. That came later. She cried in silence, later that night, when nobody could hear her trying to piece herself back together. I didn't eat that night. I couldn't even swallow water. That kind of betrayal doesn't just hurt. It rewrites your entire story. And oh, the irony. He broke me first, but everyone would see me as the dramatic one if I reacted. So I sat there, numb, waiting for the waitress to return my card like it was a normal Tuesday. My silence was my answer. It screamed louder than any outburst could. I knew, deep down, he never saw it coming. Not the version of me that would emerge from this. Not the woman who would turn this humiliation into the beginning of something so much bigger. See, betrayal has a smell. It's like burnt metal and cheap cologne. And once you've inhaled it deeply, you never forget. That night, I inhaled it so hard it settled in my bones. I was deceived, not just by him, but by myself, for believing his kindness wasn't a mask. But the truth came out in those tiny, careless words. That table, it was a stage, and he thought he had the final act. Poor fool. He never saw it coming. You want to know something wild? I found the messages the day after, buried in his iPad, synced to his email, conversations with his friends, mocking me, planning that night like it was a prank. "Watch me do it. She won't even make a scene," he wrote. I can't lie. My hands shook, my vision blurred, but something inside me clicked. Not rage, something colder, clearer. She planned it all. That version of me? She hadn't arrived yet, but she was on her way. I wish I could say someone stood up for me, but no one did. His friends looked down, awkward. Nobody believed her. Not when she tried to laugh it off. Not when she sat quietly holding her breath. Not even when the truth was staring them in the face. It was easier for them to pretend I didn't exist. And in that moment, I didn't. Not to them, not even to myself. That's what betrayal does. It makes you invisible in your own life. Stories of betrayal don't always start with cheating. Sometimes they start with a smirk and a careless insult. But here's the thing about rock bottom. It's solid. There's nowhere lower to go. And that night gave me that. Clarity wrapped in pain. I walked out of that restaurant holding more than just a bruised ego. I held truth. I held proof. And eventually, I showed him the proof. Not in a message, not in a text, but in the life I would rebuild without him. That was the revenge. Silent, strategic. I didn't scream. I evolved. That dinner may have looked like an ending, but really, it was the spark that lit a new fire. And guess what? He begged her to come back, but she finally left. Not just the table, not just the relationship. She left the version of herself that waited for breadcrumbs of affection. That girl died that night. What came next? Oh, you're not ready for her. It's funny how the truth doesn't whisper. It screams when you're finally ready to hear it. After that dinner, I couldn't stop replaying everything. Every compliment that felt hollow. Every time he dodged real questions about his life. And then it clicked. His whole identity was a performance. He wasn't just mean, he was fake. All of it. The luxury watch? Borrowed. The executive title? A lie. Turns out he was a glorified assistant, barely hanging on to his job. The guy who belittled me? He built himself on fiction. For 2 years I believed in this version of him he sold to the world. Confident, driven, important. But when the curtain dropped, there was nothing behind it, just insecurity in a nice suit. She exposed him one lie at a time, and not even out of revenge, out of necessity. Because when people see you as the problem, you better have receipts, and I had plenty. I didn't need to scream. I just needed to tell the truth. And the truth came out like a tsunami, washing away the image he clung to. His coworkers? They had stories. One by one, they reached out after I left. Turns out, she planned it all better than she thought. I had planted seeds without knowing. A sarcastic comment here, a half joke there. They were listening, watching, and when I asked the right questions, the whole web unraveled. He wasn't respected. He was tolerated. The big project he bragged about, he wasn't even invited to the meetings. My entire relationship had been built on borrowed status and broken promises. I didn't want to believe it at first, wanted to think I was just hurt, seeing things through a bitter lens. But then I found the messages again, different ones this time. Notes he sent to his friends bragging about keeping me under control, mocking my dreams, saying he'd upgrade soon. That broke me. But also, it freed me. He broke me first, and now I had nothing left to lose. That's when you become dangerous. That's when you stop hoping for closure and start building your own. I became obsessed with facts, screenshots, conversations, names. I wasn't trying to ruin him. I was trying to understand how I let myself fall for the illusion. That's the thing about betrayal. It's rarely loud. It starts in silence. And she cried in silence long enough to see clearly. Every lie he told was a mirror of something I ignored. The mask didn't fall. It was ripped off. And underneath, just a scared boy hiding behind expensive cologne and cruel jokes. He thought I would stay. That's the part that kills me. Even after the humiliation, the lies, the manipulation, he still thought I'd be too afraid to leave. He counted on my silence. My silence was my answer. It told him everything. And when I didn't return the calls, the texts, the voice notes laced with half-hearted apologies, he panicked. Because men like that don't lose control until they do. And when they do, oh, they crumble. The irony? Nobody believed her at first. His friends defended him. He's under stress. He's not like that. Even his own sister told me I was being too emotional, but I didn't need them to believe me. I needed me to believe me. And once I did, everything changed. I stopped asking for validation and started collecting evidence. For the first time in years, I felt powerful, not because I could destroy him, but because I finally saw the truth. And you know what's worse than betrayal? Realizing you betrayed yourself by staying too long. I was deceived, yes, but I also ignored my gut, that quiet whisper that said, "This doesn't feel right." So many women do. We call it loyalty, patience, empathy. But sometimes it's just fear dressed up in pretty words. The day I accepted that was the day I started becoming someone new, someone he'd never recognize. Eventually, I shared the truth with his family, not out of spite, but clarity. I met his mother, his sister, and laid out the facts, gently but firmly. They didn't say much, just sat there, wide-eyed, as I showed them screenshots and timelines. So I showed them the proof. And when they asked why I waited, I just smiled and said, because I needed to believe it myself first. You could feel the shift in the room, the weight of lies collapsing. Of course, he never saw it coming. But isn't that always the case? They underestimate the quiet ones, the loyal ones, the ones who keep showing up even after they're hurt, until they don't, until she finally leaves. Not in anger, but in truth. And once the mask is gone, what's left to love? Looking back, it feels like I dated a hologram. He wasn't just lying to me, he was lying about me. The image he created of us was so far from reality, I barely recognized the relationship he described to others. According to him, we were practically engaged. He told his family we were moving in together. He even invented a trip we never took, complete with fake photos he photoshopped from random online posts. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He betrayed me, yes, but this was something else. This was performance art. It wasn't until I spoke to his cousin that the pieces started clicking. She asked how the apartment hunt was going. I just stared at her. "You mean the one I didn't know about?" I said. Her face went blank. That was the first of many unravelings. He'd built a fictional timeline of our love story and sold it to everyone around him. He needed to be the guy with the perfect girlfriend. I was just a character in his screenplay, not a partner, a prop. She exposed him, eventually. But at the time, I was still trying to figure out why someone would go to these lengths. And here's what I realized. It wasn't about love. It was about control. When people see you as the guy who has it all, they never question what's behind closed doors. He wore me like an accessory, showed me off in pictures, bragged about our anniversary dinners that never happened, and twisted every detail to fit his fantasy. It was betrayal disguised as romance. Worse, I started buying into it. I was deceived, not just by him, but by my own willingness to believe his stories. I ignored my own doubts because the narrative sounded so nice. We looked good on paper. People complimented us, but behind the scenes, I was walking on eggshells, shrinking myself just to keep the peace. That's the danger of a fake relationship. It gaslights your reality. You start thinking you're the problem when nothing makes sense. There were moments I caught glimpses of the truth, a weird text, a story that didn't quite add up. But every time I questioned him, he'd twist it into a joke or accuse me of being paranoid, and I'd doubt myself. Again, because when someone betrays you in small, consistent ways, you stop trusting your own eyes. That's the slow burn of emotional manipulation. And still, he thought I would stay, as if my silence meant acceptance, as if love meant tolerance. I remember finding a folder on his laptop, labeled Future Us. Curious, I opened it, and there it was, mock-up photos of wedding invitations, Pinterest boards of vacation spots, edited pictures of us in front, of destinations we'd never visited. So I showed him the proof. He laughed, said I was snooping. Never mind that he'd constructed a fantasy world without my consent. That folder wasn't about us. It was about him convincing others he wasn't alone, that someone loved him, even if it was a lie. My silence was my answer. After that night, I stopped confronting. I started observing, and what I saw broke my heart. He'd tell his friends I was clingy, then beg me to stay over when they weren't around. He posted about our date nights, while ignoring me for hours at the table. Publicly affectionate, privately cold. I realized I wasn't in a relationship. I was in a marketing campaign, and I wasn't the co-founder. I was the product. The deeper I dug, the more I found. Stories he'd told his boss, fake anniversaries on social media, even made-up fights to justify his bad moods. The worst part? He always made himself the victim. In every version, I was nothing to him, just another storyline to gain sympathy or admiration. He didn't love me. He loved what having me said about him. And when I finally accepted that truth, something inside me shifted forever. By the time I left, I wasn't even sad anymore. I was exhausted. She finally left not with tears, but with receipts. I packed my things in silence, left the key on the counter, took screenshots of everything, not for revenge, but for my sanity. Because when the world tells you he seems like such a great guy, you need evidence to remind yourself. He broke me first. You're not crazy. You're not dramatic. You were just in the middle of someone else's illusion. And the irony, he never saw it coming. He thought the mask was strong enough, that if he kept smiling, the cracks would stay hidden. But truth doesn't stay buried. It leaks, slowly, then all at once. And when it does, the fake falls apart, just like he did. People think revenge has to be loud, explosive, messy. But for me, it came quietly, like a storm that had already passed before anyone noticed the damage. I didn't need to scream. I didn't need to throw his clothes off a balcony or post dramatic rants online. My silence was my answer. Because when someone shows you they never valued your worth, the most powerful thing you can do is rise with calm precision. She planned it all. And by she, I mean the version of me that had cried in silence for far too long. You know that feeling when the final piece of a plan clicks into place? That was me, sitting across from Ryan's mom, sipping wine like nothing was coming. He thought I would stay humiliated, that I'd keep quiet forever. He thought I'd just disappear. But oh, he never saw it coming, not even a little. I had been dismissed, betrayed, called ugly in front of strangers, and he broke me first. He made sure of that, but that version of me was gone. For weeks after. And during that quiet, I was building, gathering, preparing. I contacted one of his coworkers, Cody, who had seen more than Ryan realized. And guess what? Cody had screenshots, emails. He had watched Ryan lie, manipulate, and twist truths like it was sport. I barely had to ask, so I showed him the proof, and he offered more. We met 3 times, not to plot destruction, but to clarify facts. There's a difference between being vengeful and being strategic. I didn't want revenge for the sake of drama. I wanted to expose him, not to hurt, but to heal. The truth came out in pieces, like a puzzle slowly solving itself. Ryan had lied to everyone about his job, our relationship, even who paid for what. And Cody had receipts, literal ones. I waited for the perfect moment, his birthday dinner. I was still invited, shockingly. That's how confident he was that I wouldn't make a scene, and I didn't. I wore a simple dress, showed up early, and smiled. There's something unnerving about Grace when people expect chaos. People kept saying I looked different. Maybe I did, or maybe they just never saw me clearly before. Nobody believed her, that girl who used to cry behind bathroom doors and pretend everything was fine. And then, Cody walked in, late, as planned, sat down 2 seats away, and I watched Ryan's face shift like a glitching screen. He didn't know what was coming, but his gut did. Cody smiled at me, nodded once, and casually asked Ryan, "So, still telling people you're VP of sales?" The air shifted, chairs creaked, his cousin froze mid-bite. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. My silence was my answer, once again. Ryan fumbled, said it was an inside joke. Cody just laughed, warm, casual, and pulled out his phone. "Nah, man, you told me that's what you told your girl's parents too. Even your dad thinks you're up for promotion." Oh, the room went dead quiet. And that's when she exposed him, not with a scream, but a whisper. I know. That's all I said. I know. And then I reached into my purse and slid over a tiny folder of printed emails. Just enough. He tried to laugh it off, said we were just being dramatic. But the weight of truth doesn't need volume. It just needs timing. His family looked at me, not him. And for the first time, I wasn't the background character. I was the one holding the script. She cried in silence. Yes, but now she was the narrator of this whole damn play. And Ryan? He was just an actor who had forgotten his lines. When she finally left that dinner, it wasn't out of shame. It was power. Quiet, graceful, complete power. The kind that leaves people stunned, wondering how they missed all the signs. He betrayed me. I was deceived. But in that moment, I felt peace because I didn't have to ruin him. The truth did it for me, and it was only just beginning. Funny thing about truth, it has a way of sticking to your tongue, even when you try to sugarcoat it. That night at Ryan's birthday dinner, the sweetness of the cake couldn't cover the bitterness of what was unraveling. I sat there, calm, as ever, while the people who once praised him now looked at him like they didn't know who he was. He begged her to come back. Please. He could barely form words, and I didn't have to lift a finger. Everything had already been set in motion. The candles were lit. You could feel the tension rise. Everyone sang. Smiles were forced. My heart was steady. When she was captured by love before, she would have cried, begged for answers. But that woman was gone, and in her place stood someone who had planned this moment with intention. I was watching it all unfold like a movie I'd already seen, and I knew the ending, because she planned it all. Every beat, every breath, every sip of wine between the punches of truth. I waited until the second round of dessert, chocolate cake, with raspberry drizzle, when the room had relaxed a little. That's when Cody leaned in and asked Ryan how things were going with the new promotion. Still waiting on that contract from corporate, he said, with that same innocent tone. And just like that, the illusion cracked again. Ryan's mom blinked. Wait, I thought you already got it. That was the moment the snowball started rolling. Ryan fumbled through words like a kid caught cheating on a test. Well, still finalizing details. But Cody wouldn't let up. You said it was finalized 3 months ago. You even sent a photo of the offer letter. I bit my lip, just barely smiling. She exposed him, not with rage, but with rhythm. Each sentence peeled back a layer, until the truth stood bare in the center of the room, like a spotlight had landed on his lies. I found the messages too. Texts he sent bragging about how he manipulated me, how I was too soft to leave, how I made him look good. His cousin read one out loud after scrolling through Cody's phone. Dude, she's lucky to be with me. I make her look hotter just by standing next to her. Someone actually gasped, the kind of gasp that hits the room like cold air. I didn't flinch. He broke me first, but now he was falling apart all on his own. Ryan stood up and tried to defend himself. You guys don't understand. It's not like that. But even his voice cracked under the weight of so many half-truths. His uncle asked why he lied about buying me that necklace, one I had actually bought for myself. The whole family started questioning details, one by one, like they'd been rehearsing this moment, except they hadn't. The truth just had that effect. It always shows up eventually, even when it's late. And me? I sat back, crossed my legs, and let it happen. My silence was my answer. He thought I would stay. He thought I'd shrink under pressure like always, but I had nothing left to lose. Every piece of evidence was already in their hands. Printed emails, screenshots, bank statements. I didn't need to say much. The damage was self-inflicted, and honestly, a long time coming. Somewhere between the second slice of cake and his sister storming out, I realized something. Revenge doesn't have to roar. It can whisper. It can smile. It can sit at a dinner table in a red dress and make liars sweat bullets. That night, stories of betrayal weren't just told. They were lived in real time, with dessert and family tension as the soundtrack. And there I was, watching it like a scene I wrote. He never saw it coming. Not the folder, not Cody, not the way his own family would start to turn. And definitely not the moment I leaned over and said, next time, don't underestimate someone who stayed quiet. I meant it, because I was deceived, because I was nothing to him, until I became the reason he lost everything. That birthday. Cake? It was the sweetest thing I'd tasted in months. And just when he thought the worst was over, well, let's just say he had no idea what was coming next. There's something surreal about watching someone who once had control over you completely unravel. Ryan used to walk around like he was untouchable. Perfect smile, loud laugh, and a fake sense of success that fooled almost everyone. But after that dinner, Oh, he spiraled fast. At first, he tried to pretend like nothing happened. He posted those annoying living my best life selfies, but behind the scenes, he was barely holding it together. He started showing up outside my apartment. I'm not exaggerating, just standing there like some creepy statue, pretending it was a coincidence. The same guy who called me ugly in front of his friends was now outside my door begging for a quick talk. It was unsettling. He begged her to come back like nothing had happened, like I hadn't found the messages, like he hadn't humiliated me. The nerve. At first, I didn't respond. My silence was my answer. I thought that would be enough, but the silence only seemed to agitate him more. He began messaging my friends, my coworkers, even my mom, trying to explain. He was spinning his version of the story. She overreacted. It was just a joke. I was drunk. Classic gaslighting. He broke me first, but somehow I was still being cast as the villain. Then came the public meltdowns. He went on social media and posted vague, dramatic quotes, stuff like, "Some people can't handle real love," or "Loyalty doesn't mean anything anymore." I rolled my eyes, but people started asking questions. That's when he lost it, completely. He posted a long rant, tagging me, calling me manipulative and cold. I didn't even flinch. I knew the truth. And soon, so would everyone else. That post backfired hard. Comments poured in. And guess what? Cody, his own co-worker, jumped in and told people the truth. He exposed him without hesitation, told the world about the lies, the cheating, the fake job titles, everything. The truth came out, and it hit like a tidal wave. People were stunned. Some unfollowed him instantly. Others left sarcastic comments. He never saw it coming. Ryan tried to salvage his image. He posted a video crying, literally crying, saying he was just misunderstood. I couldn't believe it. The same guy who mocked me in front of a crowd was now playing the victim in front of a phone camera. He even tried to twist the story and say I had planned it all. Yeah, she planned it all because she wanted dignity. What a plot twist, huh? After that disaster, he lost his job. Apparently, someone from HR had been at that dinner. The company didn't want to be associated with the story of betrayal circulating online. They let him go quietly, and just like that, his entire castle built on lies crumbled. He was left with nothing but his ego, and even that was bruised beyond recognition. He started calling mutual friends, asking for just a chance to explain. He said he was devastated, that he loved me, but I was nothing to him when it actually mattered. When I needed him to have my back, he chose public humiliation. So I showed him the proof, the receipts, the screenshots, the fake texts, everything. I dropped it all on a shared drive and sent it to his sister. Let the family deal with their golden boy. That's when his family cut ties. Nobody believed her at first. His sister thought I was being dramatic. But once she saw the messages, the fake pay stubs, and even a staged apartment he pretended to rent for our future, she changed. She called me crying. She said, "I didn't know. I'm sorry." That moment felt oddly healing. Not because I needed validation, but because the mask had finally shattered. Revenge wasn't even sweet. It was quiet. It was soft. It was sitting in my apartment, sipping tea, and realizing I didn't have to lift a finger anymore. Ryan was dismantling himself. Every post, every lie, every attempt to rewrite the narrative. It was all unraveling. He betrayed me, and now he was facing the weight of his own deception. But I wasn't done yet. After the chaos, something inside me just settled. It wasn't instant. Healing never is. But one morning, I woke up and realized I hadn't thought about Ryan at all the night before. No bitterness, no imaginary arguments in my head, no replaying that awful night at the restaurant. Just quiet. After everything, after he broke me first, after I found the messages, after she exposed him, the silence finally felt like freedom, not emptiness. You know what's wild? I started laughing again, like really laughing. The kind of laugh that catches you off guard and makes you feel a little silly. I'd gone so long barely breathing, barely existing, that feeling joy again almost felt like a betrayal to the pain. But I leaned into it. I went out with friends who reminded me who I was, before he made me feel like I was nothing to him. And little by little, I remembered. Peace didn't come from revenge. It came from clarity, from knowing that he thought I would stay and realizing I never had to, that my silence was my answer. I didn't need to scream or prove anything anymore. I just had to keep walking, one step at a time, and every time I did, I felt a little lighter. I even started journaling again, writing out the betrayal, the revenge, the moments when she cried in silence. All of it helped me make sense of the mess. And then there was Cody. Of all people, I didn't expect him to be a part of my story beyond that dinner, but he kept checking in, not in a flirty way, at first, just kind, present, human. One night, over coffee, he looked at me and said, "You didn't deserve any of that, but you handled it better than most people I know." That hit me hard, because deep down, I'd started to believe maybe I did deserve it. That's what abuse does. It rewrites your self-worth. Cody and I didn't rush anything. We talked, a lot, about boundaries, trust, red flags. We laughed at how ridiculous some of Ryan's lies were. power, and slowly, we built something rooted in honesty. No fake milestones, no over-the-top gestures, just truth. I told him I was scared. I told him I didn't want another story of betrayal. And he listened, like really listened, not to respond, but to understand. Outside of Cody, I rebuilt my own world too. I applied for a new job. I started therapy. I joined a book club. Yes, a real one. Not just the wine kind, though we did drink a lot of wine. I learned how to sit with my feelings instead of running from them. When she was captured in that moment at the restaurant, humiliated and alone, I never imagined she'd turn it into a chapter of strength. But that's the thing about pain. If you let it, it becomes your teacher. I started sharing pieces of my story online, not to shame Ryan, but to help other women spot the signs. The love bombing, the subtle control, the emotional manipulation. So many of them reached out. Nobody believed her. I was deceived too. Your story feels like mine. That's when I knew this wasn't just about my healing. It was about helping others reclaim their peace too. One woman messaged me saying, "Reading your words gave me the strength to finally leave." That wrecked me in the best way, because she finally left. And maybe, just maybe, someone else will too. That's what truth does. It frees you, even when it hurts, even when it shows up late. The truth came out, and with it came a wave of release I never expected. There are still moments I look back and wonder how I ever accepted so little, how I let someone's words become a mirror I looked into every day. But now I know better. Now I speak to myself differently. I don't ask, why wasn't I enough for him? I say, why wasn't he ever enough for me? And that changes everything. It turns the page from betrayal to rebirth. But peace isn't the end of the story. It's just the beginning of something deeper. Because when you reclaim your peace, you also reclaim your power. And with that power comes the clarity to see what really matters next. Looking back, I've realized something crucial about this whole experience. It wasn't just about a relationship falling apart or getting revenge. It was about reclaiming control over my life and my narrative. You see, when Ryan humiliated me, he thought he could define my worth. But in the end, it was his story, not mine, that unraveled. And what I learned, the hard way, is that no one gets to tell you who you are, except you. That's where the real power lies. Ryan thought I would stay. He thought I was so broken that I would just keep accepting the scraps he threw my way, that I'd keep apologizing for being too sensitive or too emotional. But the truth is, I wasn't weak. I wasn't overly dramatic. I was just done. And when I realized that, when I saw the pattern of emotional abuse, I stopped apologizing for existing. That was the first step toward real empowerment. It wasn't about getting back at him. It wasn't about showing him how wrong he was. It was about reclaiming my self-respect. I'd been deceived, not just by him, but by the image of a perfect relationship I'd bought into. And when the truth came out, when I exposed him, something shifted. It wasn't just about ending things with him. It was about ending the hold his lies had over me. And in doing so, I freed myself. Betrayal, in any form, leaves a mark. But what it doesn't do is define you. The stories of betrayal we tell ourselves often revolve around the idea that we're somehow less because we've been hurt. But that couldn't be further from the truth. We're more, we're wiser, we're stronger. Every scar carries a lesson, and every lesson leads to growth. Ryan's betrayal wasn't the end of my story. It was just a painful chapter that led me to who I was always meant to become. But I'll tell you what, there's something powerful about the way your narrative shifts when you stop looking for validation from someone who doesn't even respect you. There's a sense of relief in knowing that, regardless of what happened, I can stand tall in the truth of who I am. That's what Ryan couldn't take from me, my truth. And in the end, that's what saved me. The revenge I thought I wanted, it faded away, like smoke. At first, I couldn't see beyond the pain, the embarrassment, the anger. But once I found my peace, I realized that revenge is a temporary fix. It's fleeting. The real victory comes when you refuse to let someone else's behavior control your happiness. That's where the power is, in choosing how you respond, not how you react. I look at the people in my life now, the ones who truly see me for who I am, and I can't help but be thankful. My friends, the ones who never doubted me, the ones who picked me up when I was at my lowest, they remind me daily that love isn't about perfection. It's about respect. It's about trust. And it's about standing by each other, no matter what. That's the message I carry forward. It's never too late to walk away from a toxic situation. You're not bound to anyone who doesn't treat you with the love and respect you deserve, and you're not required to accept mistreatment just because it's familiar. You can always choose to leave, and, in doing so, choose yourself. Your worth is never tied to someone else's actions or opinions. It's inherent, unshakable. The moment I walked away from Ryan wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning of reclaiming who I was meant to be. And while I may have stumbled, cried in silence, or even questioned myself in moments of doubt, I never stopped moving forward. I know now that every setback, every betrayal, every lie was simply a redirection to something greater. And that's the true power of reclaiming your peace. So, to anyone reading this who's been through something similar, Don't let someone else's betrayal become your life's defining moment. Let it be the lesson that shapes you, the fire that forges your resilience, because in the end, you'll be stronger, wiser, and more powerful than you ever thought possible. The truth came out, and with it, so did your strength.